Okay, guys, I just came back from an interview, so that's why I look like this. But a lot of people have been asking me to do the review for the room where it happened with John Bolton, and why do I recommend this book, even if you support Trump. This book is not just criticism and shit talking. It's a lot of constructive criticism. I think that many of the things he's saying in this book is true about Trump. One of the biggest things that he says is that Trump is a very transactional guy. He believes that it's what you can do for me and what I can do for you. That goes to his business mindset, and that's not the way of running government. Unfortunately, you can't run government like that, and that's a fair criticism. Before I get into it, the chapter de Venezuela Libre, no sé si lo ven, el chapter de Venezuela Libre, lo voy a hacer en español más tarde. Ahorita no, ahorita nada más voy a hacer review del book in English. One of the first things John Bolton talks about, that why the Trump administration failed. I'm not saying that it failed. He's just saying that it fails. That's his point of view. Is that unfortunately Trump believed that he was going to lose, that he was going to lose the 2016 election, and because he believed in his mind, because the media was telling him, everybody around him was telling him, Republicans ran away from him, everything else, and the polls were looking so good for Hillary Clinton, then he didn't put in place a cabinet, and he didn't put in place people to guide him to run government. And when he won, it came as a surprise, but then he had to rush to pick people in cabinet positions, and unfortunately he picked people that didn't have as much experience as he could have picked them, and he picked people with political favors, like the wife of Senator McConnell, right? She got picked. Jim Mattis. He didn't even know Jim Mattis. He didn't know what Jim Mattis thought. He thought that it was just a name, Mad Dog Mattis. Turns out that he's a leftist Democrat. He's a tool of the globalists, and he picked the Mnuchin for his Secretary of Treasury, who he barely have anything in common with in the way that he thought of how to do the economy, how to do economic policies. He picked obviously the first Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, who was horrible, because that was based on loyalty. That was based on Jeff Sessions being there for him during the campaign, which is not the way you want to do things. And as his presidency started, he relied on these advices from all these cabinet members that were supposed to be experts in their field, and some of them were not. And he was going along with pretty much many of the things that we're saying, or he was trying to put his own policy in place, but he didn't know how to enact it. And because these people were in government and they're corrupt, they were trying to find flaws or ways around whatever he wanted. And he became very he didn't trust him. He didn't trust his cabinet. And because he didn't trust his cabinet, as time went on, like when he got rid of the first cabinet, pretty much he fired a bunch of people. The next cabinet that came over, he didn't want to listen to them. He pretty much became what I say go, but he didn't know how to enact it. The other thing is that John Bolton talks about is that Trump, because it's from the business side, from the financial side, he believed that running government was gonna be like a company, and it's not. It's not like a company at all. You need to know the ways of the bureaucracy. You need to navigate through the bureaucracy. To enact policies, You need to be able to have the right people in place. And unfortunately, he just put the people at the top, or he completely forgot about the second in command, third in command, and it was also the fault of the Senate that were delaying his picks, and some of his policies were not enacted the way that he wanted them. This establishment Republicans and globalists, they enacted some of the policies the way they wanted them, but not the way Trump wanted them, which makes them even more doubtful about them, and didn't want to trust them. It's just also it comes down to the way that he saw a relationship with other countries. He thought that if I have a good relationship, if Trump had a good relationship with Putin or Xi or Kim Jong-un, then that was going to be enough for Russia and China to have policies that were pro-American or pro whatever Trump wanted, which is not the case. Business is like that. If I have a good relationship with another business guy, then yeah, he's gonna do what I want, or what is gonna help my business, and I'm gonna help him. That's just the way it is, because it's a private thing. But countries have their own interests, and it comes down to geopolitics or other factors. But just because Putin has a good relationship with you does not mean that he's not seeking the interests of Russia and undermine American interests on the long term. So those are fair criticisms. Those are fair criticisms of Trump. And one of the biggest points of this book is the Jim Mattis. John Bolton was nailing Jim Mattis over and over again because he kept doing shady things. Trump, when the chemical attack happened in Syria, and Trump wanted a response, a strong response by the military, Jim Mattis didn't want to do it, and they gave him a timeline to give me options, because he's the Secretary of Defense. Give him options, and instead he delay the options until only the options that Jim Mattis wanted were on the table, and none of them were strong enough according to Trump and according to the national security advisors. So he basically was navigating bureaucracy like he wanted it, and not doing what the president wants, which is not what you want. He also, Jim Mattis, when he got picked, his second in command that he nominated to be his Lieutenant Secretary of Defense was the Hillary Clinton's pick for Secretary of Defense, because he was trying to do it like a unity thing or something like that, which is one of the things that Trump said that, okay, Jim Mattis is kind of a Democrat. And maybe he is. Maybe he was. Another thing that is important for the book is that they talk a lot about Russia. Obviously, there is some controversial things that Trump may have said because he was trying to keep a good relationship with Putin. But he did a lot of things against Russia. He took away the open sky treaty, so Russia can no longer fly on top of us and see what we're building. He kept building up our nuclear arsenal and our nuclear delivery systems to try to go after Russia. He put more sanctions in Russia. He went really hard on them on Syria. He told Jim Mattis to go ahead and either kill or deter any Russian contractors that were trying to take oil fields. He gave weapons to Ukraine to kill Russians. But the Obama administration didn't even want to give tow missiles to Ukraine, which is the Russian tanks were there. So he did a lot against Russia. One of the biggest things that Trump always says is that we need to be stronger than Russia and China. And he kept trying to enact those policies. He believed in a strong military. He really did. And I think that a lot of people have a misunderstanding of this book. Yes, there is a lot of, unfortunately, bullshit, shit talking that they're calling the president out on certain things. But overall, it's a fair criticism of the president. And I think that many of these conversations that are happening here are true. If they're in quotations, there's no way that that's not Trump. That's just the way that those conversations sound. The chapter of Venezuela Libre, which was my particular interest, is very, very good, very, very detailed, which I'm gonna review later in Spanish. But I would recommend, because of the political climate and everything that is going on around us, I would recommend this book. Read it, see what happens, see the way Trump thinks, and maybe that can prepare you for whatever is gonna go down here in the future. But unfortunately, the president, I feel like his heart was at the right place. He just lacked the experience, which should have been we should have been ready for that, because he was a financial business guy. But if you lack the experience, you need to have the people in the right place. And unfortunately, because the media and everybody else was telling him that he was going to lose, he never prepared for that. And he chose people that were globalists, establishment Republicans, and all kinds of things. So I believe his heart was at the right place, but unfortunately, a lot of people did dirty things to him, leak out all kinds of information. He didn't trust anybody, and this presidency could have been better. But next time, whoever gets elected and doesn't really have a governmental experience, they should know that leading the country is not like a business. You need to know the bureaucracies of it, and that's where Trump failed. He failed to understand that there is a bureaucracy, that is an establishment that has been there for 50 years, and it's hard to change their policies. You just need to have the right leadership, but he never had it. So please pick up this book. I recommend it, The Room Where It Happened by John Bolton.